recruiting information from Under Armour Atlanta, and a surprise MVP.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime recruiting analyst and college football writer. Thank you for making the Portal your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Today's special episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Let's dive right in. This is 100% about the Atlanta Under Armour event that I just got home from. Long day, got up at 4 a.m. local time to go drive to it. Just got back, have a ton of players to go over, but there's two primary points here. The MVP I want to discuss momentarily, and then I have a long list of players, recruiting notes, comments about how they played 40 times, all that kind of stuff. So first off, MVP, the kid that I'd met before but had never had a chance to shine because of the school that he was at had so many guys. Everybody was good. So there wasn't just an easy way to look at him as the prime man. DeShawn Spencer, stand up. He's played running back, been that guy for Saraland High School just outside of Mobile. He played with Ryan Williams. He played with KJ Lacey and a whole bunch of other guys that are really, really good. Well, now on the national stage at Under Armour Atlanta, he was a dude. When I first got onto X, when I got home and just kind of scrolling through my timeline, Billy Tucker, who runs the Under Armour events, had tweeted, nobody could cover him, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I retweeted it with my own comment. I said, here's my MVP. 5'11", 170 pounds. He could play running back. He can play DB. And he most definitely can play receiver. He's got jets. He has jets. Props to DeShawn Spencer for not just being the guy that runs by players. He catches it. Looks natural. He changes up his route combinations, like in and out of his breaks, what he tries to use to get the DB to lean one direction or another. That's how you play football. Today, he was a man possessed. Recruiting-wise, Georgia Tech and Auburn are a couple of schools that he mentioned. He's going to get back to Auburn fairly soon. Month of February, for those you don't know, is a dead period month. Kind of let the coaches have a little breather from going out on the road and the recruits having to take all these unofficial visits. But his phone's going to be busy. His DMs on X are going to be busy. And same thing with Instagram and et cetera. That's a young man that is going to be seeing a lot of action. And to be honest with you, I think he's a kid that's a four-star recruit pretty conservatively, but last year was his first year playing receiver. That's why we go to these events. As I talked about yesterday on the portal, players that come into this event and everywhere else that actually this morning, everything that comes in is big time as far as this raw talent, but who develops in the moment in front of everybody. It's not easy when we had like 50 media members there today. It was insane how many people are on the sidelines. On3, ESPN, Rivals, 24/7, and a whole bunch of independent companies. It was a lot of fun, but he really showed out. So my MVP again is DeShawn Spencer, Saraland High School, just outside of Mobile, Alabama. Tremendous young man and big-time football prospect. As for the list, this is a long one. I'm just going to start to dive in. I'll break it up a little bit here in a few minutes, but I'll get to the one that everybody wants to hear about, and that's Kaiden Prothro out of Bowden High School. I'd seen him a few times this past season, a couple practices and a game. Nobody can guard him at this level either. He's 6'6", 210 pounds, one of the most subdued guys off the field, but the way he makes people miss, and I'm going to have some posts on X, on Instagram, and on YouTube, etc. If you want to see his route running and all that over the next 48 hours, there'll be 2 or 3 probably on each one. My story, I think right now on Instagram's got a reel of him, but this is a guy that's offered by everybody. Texas, Georgia, Bama, Auburn, Florida, those are probably your 5. Now that can change. And when I asked at the end, that's the only question that I really asked him. I was in on a group of reporters. Hey, what's your timeline? You're going to try to get it done this summer? What's the deal? And he said, I'd like to get it done in August, but it could go into the season. Kaiden is not somebody that will just flatline what he's doing. He wants to evaluate, hardline it, understand, know what he wants to do before saying something. And that's just his personality in general. But he's all about building relationships. He talked about going to Texas and building more of a relation with the Longhorn staff, and he's been to Georgia numerous times. That's probably their number one target in state, I would imagine, in terms of a guy that's a playmaker. I don't think anybody else is above him unless it's Lamar, who's somebody else I'll talk about here in a little bit. But there's no doubt Prothro on and off the field is somebody that UGA and everybody else wants. Auburn's trying to get him on campus for an OB, Bama, etc. I'll be interested to see how this one plays out, because while everybody thinks he's going to Georgia, from talking to him and especially from talking to his father, I don't think that's a foregone conclusion like many others do. Georgia is the easy pick because it's the in-state program, but at one time it was Florida State that was the likely destination, and they fell off. So let's see how this goes through the spring, how his visits line up, and how it kind of finalizes before we anoint the Dogs the finalist and the only team to really think about with Kaiden Prothro. Great kid, great player, but there's still a long way to go. Next, and this is a kid, won't shock anybody either. If you like DB play, Jorden Edmonds, Sprayberry High School, Atlanta, Georgia, really long. I've seen him before, but seeing the way he has advanced his technique, holy cow, that's a kid that can really ball. The only OB he's got set right now is Georgia on May 30th, and the 6'2", 175-pounder also has Bama. That's the team to watch for. I think Bama is probably the most important team in his recruitment right now. Do not forget about them. Florida, Oklahoma, and I believe it is Tennessee as well. There's just a group of, the prime SEC programs, and then the newbie, Oklahoma, that's involved. Really good kid. He answered everybody's questions afterwards. He's the kind of guy I'd want to have on my roster. I don't see how you don't put him in your top 100 if you were at this event. The way he changed direction, even though he's a 6'2" kid, is not normal. That is a very good football player. Needs to add some weight, 100%. He's not filled out yet. He's got a long way to go from a physical strength standpoint and just adding pounds, but that's okay. You can add weight a lot easier than you can lose it, I can assure you that. And this is a kid that I think you can play on the boundary, or if you wanted to play him to the field, flip sides, doesn't matter. He did well against bigger guys and smaller guys. Most importantly, though, when he wants to put his foot in the ground and change direction, he doesn't go boom, boom, and then take off. It's just one foot in the ground and redirect. That is the difference between him and many other guys. He's going to make a play when it's necessary because he has the God-given talent, and he's taken to his craft. That will be an absolute battle to the end. I don't think there's any doubt that Edmonds is a top 5 corner in the nation, just based on what I've seen so far. Seen him a couple of times, and I've seen Battle Miami this spring, and I'm going to see some other events. We'll see if that holds up. But right now, I think Jorden Edmonds is the national top 5 corner. And again, he's at Sprayberry High School in Atlanta, Georgia. Speaking of DBs, Zion Gibson, Gadsden County in the state of Alabama, committed to the Tide. If they had Jorden Edmonds with him, it would be really good. I thought he was really good too. Thought Edmonds was even better, and he's got more length, but the same kind of deal. Puts his foot in the ground, changes direction, got some physicality to him. I would not rule out him playing nickel. Really good football player, and guys like him are not easy to find. If you can get a kid that can play corner and nickel, man, that's a bonus. Alabama's got themselves a DB. Speaking of a guy that could play nickel, but I think might end up at safety too, just depends on how he wants to be used. He played in man coverage today. That's all they really run in these one-on-ones. They don't do a lot of system stuff and bracket and all that. It's just one-on-ones. We film it and we keep rolling. Blake Stewart out of Woodward Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. That's a program, for those you don't know, that's always got good players. I thought he was pretty darn good. He's 5'11", 170 pounds. He can change direction, get after it. Do not forget about him. I didn't interview him afterwards, but he's really, really good. I think he's a guy that can make a lot of noise down the road. Corey Barber, wide receiver. This is a kid, I just was filming some of the 40-yard dashes, and he went by, and I looked at another camera guy, and he looked at me. We're like, holy cow, who is that? Barber was flying. He's from Spain Park High School in Birmingham. He was blowing smoke. And then when he did the gauntlet drill coming across, catching the ball each side, going back and forth, looked really good, had some good routes, beat some DBs. Barber's a guy that's his stock is up. I don't see how you can't see him moving up the ladder based on what he did. When we come back, we're going to talk about some quarterbacks. We're going to talk about running backs and a whole bunch more players here on the Portal. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into the same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team or a late rally or picking a player to hit the clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Right now, FanDuel customers can bet $150 in bonus bets get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's continue on with recruiting news from Under Armour. I had a blast. I always do. It's a lot of fun. As far as quarterbacks, I don't pay attention to the quarterbacks quite like I do linemen and the DBs receivers because they get a little more one-on-one stuff. But some of the guys that I noticed, and you can take this for what it's worth, Trent Seaborn, who Under Armour actually really liked, and they honored him afterwards at the award ceremony out of Thompson. I'd seen him play this past season at the game at Auburn. He's just a really accurate kid. Smart quarterback, puts the ball where he should. Landon Duckworth out of Jackson and Mobile, very athletic, had a few high throws and all that, but he can just change direction. He's such a freaky athlete. He looks like a two-guard in basketball. I can see why he's recruited by so many programs, Florida State, Auburn, whole bunch of schools are after him. I think that's a kid that has tremendous upside. Kareem Yulee, a little bit underrated. He's a kid out of Gainesville, Georgia. He can spin it. He's a kid to watch. I need to watch more of him. But that's a name to know. And then the kid that I was really intrigued by coming into this day out of Grayson High School is Travis Burgess. Really big drink of water. That's a 6'4", 200-plus pound kid. He can throw it on the run. He can play from the pocket. He's got a natural motion. He doesn't have a funky stance or do anything unusual. Really traditional pocket quarterback with mobility skills. I like him. I think somebody's going to do well to get him. Could be Auburn. That's a school that's been in on him, but I like him quite a bit. Moving to the running back position, there was one guy that I really wanted to see, and there was a few others. Carson Baker from Langston Hughes is a guy it's a pretty darn good player. But the guy that I really focused on, because I just wanted to see him on the hoof based on his huddle film, was Jay Lamar. That is exactly what I thought it was. I wouldn't want to get in front of that. He's 200-plus pounds. He runs angry, changes direction, even better than what I thought, watching him go through bags and do different drills in the pass receiving game. There's no doubt in my mind. That's a national top 5 running back conservatively. Might be the best in the country. It's debatable. Everybody's got their own pick. Plays at Colquitt County, so he's getting coaching. It's one of the best programs in Georgia and the entire United States in South Central Georgia. I love that kid. Auburn, Georgia, several other programs are involved. But watch out for Jay Lamar. That is a really good football player. Speaking of good football players from Georgia, Anthony Davis Jr., another kid, not really shocking, another Grayson kid. Really like him. Great kid to talk to, too. That's a young man that can change direction, could be your will linebacker, can play in coverage, might be a nickel backer. Those specialists at that spot, they're hard to find. Really liked Anthony Davis Jr. Big guys. Wasn't as good this year in the Deep South, and there's more camps this year. So some of them are going to go to Nashville, some are going to go to New Orleans. But just a few of the guys that stood out. The guy that I wanted to see him, but he was way better than I'd even seen him last summer. No doubt about it. Tyson Bacon out of Hoover, just outside of Birmingham, Alabama. He's actually lost 5 pounds. Looks fantastic. He's 260, around 6'4", has some good hands, good motion, and he's added power. His pad level's gotten lower. His first step get-off's gotten better. That's a kid that Tennessee stole. We'll see if they can keep him away from Freddie Roach and Bama and several other programs. That's going to be a long battle. He is going to take some visits, but talking to Bacon, that's a guy that he's open-minded, but Tennessee did the best job from the outset. I know that from talking to him last summer when I went up to see him at Coach L's step-by-step training, and they did the best job, and that's why I picked him. They're still going to have to hold on, but Tennessee's got the edge right now, and that's a really, really good football player. As far as Bryce Perry Wright out of Buford, he is your traditional one-gap, get up the field, 3-tech. That is not going to be fun. bull in a china shop. He's got some quickness to get around you, but once he gets his shoulder and his hands extended and powering through, if he gets underneath you and gets leverage, which most of the time he does, that's not good. You have to get hands on him immediately and thwart his first movement, or you're in a lot of trouble. I didn't get a chance to interview him afterwards, but he's got a host of offers. I think that's a kid that can go to just about any program, although I don't believe Georgia's really after him. They want taller D linemen. So this one could be pretty wide open. As for a couple offensive linemen to watch, not really shocked here. Jared Smith's a kid that played well. He's at Woodland High School on the southeast side of Atlanta. Just big, like he walks by, you're like, oh, wow, look at that. Who is this kid? Georgia's really looking at him hard. I can see why. He fits their profile of longer, bigger guys. Had a really good personality. People got along with him when they interviewed him and whatnot. He fits the part, and I talked to some people around Under Armour. That's a guy that did really well in some other people's opinion too. The other guy, I kind of expected this because he's so powerful. Bear McWhorter out of Cass High School in Georgia. Probably going to play inside at the collegiate level, but he can definitely ball. I would not want to be a guy that has to take him one play after another, especially if it's a downhill running game. He's a power player. That's going to be a really good SEC guy. Now, just for a couple of players on the front for the underclassmen, there was a bunch. And again, I'm only going over part of the list here. This is not by any means a complete list because there are over 100 kids and I'm one guy. There's events going on all over that indoor facility at Carrollton High School. George Lamons, Brooks County High School in Georgia, wide receiver, class of 27, so he's going to be a junior. When he walked by, you're like, okay, that kid's a little different. And then somebody goes, hey, he's a junior this next season. I'm like, really? Okay. But the way he catches the ball over his shoulder, the way he can run, I already put out a video on one of the social media handles. It might have been Instagram. I can't remember, at FB Scout _Florida. Really good looking football player. And I imagine he's going to have 30, 40 offers pretty quick. Elijah Brown, defensive lineman at Prattville. That's a kid that's got the natural interior defensive line body. He can play, still kind of learning all the technique and that stuff, but can't teach the God-given frame that Elijah Brown has. And to be really honest with you, there aren't enough of those guys in general. So if he develops even a little bit, watch out for Elijah Brown at Prattville. He had some pretty good pass rush moves. One kid to mention from 28, and I really didn't dive into the underclassmen all that much, Casey Barner out of McEachern. He's got hops, he's got speed, and he's got moxie. That's a kid that Georgia and about everybody else is going to offer. Remember the name Casey Barner, really, really good football player. I'm going to have a whole bunch of reels, shorts on YouTube, X, if you want to find what's going on with the Under Armour camp, photos, all kinds of stuff. I've got hours and hours of stuff to do over the next 3-4 days to get all this stuff cataloged, putting up videos randomly, probably going to do a few reels with players, some videos together like Kaiden Prothro. Just make sure you check out me on X and on Instagram at FB Scout _Florida. That's at FB Scout _Florida. You'll get to see some more stuff. As for the portal, we're going to roll on. We're going to have more videos. We're going to have more introductions with different team sites, talking about the recruiting, talking about who they're trying to get now, what their 25 class was like, who's going to be impact recruits, all this next week. Also going to have John Garcia Jr. from Rivals on here really soon. He was with me today in Under Armour's Atlanta event, and we have a lot to talk about. He's going to talk about some of his top guys, who he likes, and a little recruiting scoop later this week too. So make sure you come back to see us on the portal each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in. Hit that like, hit that notification bell, subscribe, and share the Portal Podcast to anybody you know that likes to follow recruiting. I will see you again soon.